Okay, so let's dive into something pretty powerful. We're about to explore a framework for decision-making, but this isn't a belief system. Think of it more like a high-performance operating system, an OS, for reality itself, and it's called the Actuality Principle.
You know, the source material for this whole thing kicks off with this really powerful idea. The truth isn't just some passive concept, something we debate about. No, it's an active force, kind of like gravity, right? It's shaping our world constantly, whether we pay attention to it or not.
And that leads to a really fascinating question. What if we just stopped thinking about truth as a purely philosophical thing? What if we started treating it like a strategic tool? You know, what if being lined up with reality was actually the ultimate competitive advantage?
So to really get how we arrive at that practical idea, we've got to go back to the beginning. The whole concept started with this really evocative, almost spiritual name, truth, the religion. The whole idea behind that name was this. Truth isn't something you have. It's not a personal belief you can just change on a whim. Nope. Instead, it's the framework that holds us. It's the system we're all playing in.
So this original vision, it was pretty philosophical. It saw truth as like the one sacred thing, a principle that could bring together science and spirituality. And get this, in this worldview, morality wasn't about a set of rules you follow. It just emerged naturally from being aligned with what's real. But the really cool part? It imagined a community where saying, hey, I was wrong, wasn't a failure. It was celebrated. It was seen as a win for getting closer to what's actually true.
Okay, but a poetic idea, no matter how cool, isn't always enough, right? This whole concept had to evolve. And it did, because it started to solve a very, very real and very expensive problem. And that's the high cost of just being out of sync with what's actually going on.
The source material has a name for this problem. It's called dissynchronization. Basically, it's the gap between the story a company tells itself, its internal narrative, and what's actually happening out there in the real world. And this is not some abstract, fluffy concept. We're talking about a tangible liability, something that literally shows up on the balance sheet as wasted money, projects going down the drain, and broken trust.
And this desync leads directly to something they call the lie tax. And this is a brilliant way to think about it. Imagine this. One executive hides that their project is failing. Well, every other team that then throws money or people at that project, they're essentially paying a tax on that original lie. It creates this cascade of waste. One piece of bad info literally infects every single decision that comes after it.
So here's the absolute kicker. Every lie is a tax on every single decision that follows. It's not a one-time thing. It's a compounding debt. Each little falsehood makes the whole system dumber, slower, and way less likely to actually succeed.
So when you're faced with that kind of practical, real-world cost, the idea has to change. It's got to evolve. And that's exactly what happened. It was reframed, away from a philosophy and into a super pragmatic, actionable framework. Yeah, an operating system for truth.
And this really shows you the heart of that shift. We're going from truth, the religion, which is a belief system, over to the Actuality Principle, a straight-up strategic framework. The focus totally changes, from philosophical to strategic, from sacred to secular. It stops being about what you believe, and it becomes all about what actually works.
And the entire OS is built on this one core axiom. It's super simple but incredibly powerful. The quality of your outcomes is directly proportional to how well you're aligned with what is actually true. Think of it this way. The better your map of the world is, the better you're going to navigate it. It's that simple.
Okay, so if that's the big idea, how do you actually do it? How do you put it into practice? Well, it turns out this whole principle is most powerful when a whole group adopts it. That's when you can build what the source material calls a high coherence network. And that's just a fancy way of saying a team that works like a single collective brain, like an intelligence engine.
And there are three key things, three hallmarks of one of these networks. What's so cool is how they stack on top of each other. First, it all, and I mean all, starts with psychological safety. You've probably heard about this from Google's Project Aristotle, right? It's that bedrock feeling that you can speak up, point out a problem without fear of being punished. Then, once you have that safety, you can get to step 2. You actually celebrate correction. Think about aviation safety culture. When someone points out an error, it's not a failure, it's a gift. It makes the whole system safer. And when you can do that, you get the final piece, a true meritocracy of ideas. The best idea wins because of the data behind it, not because the person with the fanciest title said it.
But let's be clear, this isn't just about creating some warm, fuzzy company culture. This whole framework is designed from the ground up to build a measurable, hard-nosed, serious competitive advantage.
And here's how you know it's serious. It's totally data-driven. You can actually track your progress with clear KPIs, key performance indicators. Take the time-to-truth ratio. That's literally just measuring how long it takes for critical, need-to-know info to get from the front lines to the people making the big decisions. The target here is under 48 hours, but get this, some of the top tech firms out there are shooting for under 24 hours. It's all about measuring and rewarding transparency and the courage to admit, hey, we made a mistake here.
So if there's one thing to take away, it's this. This isn't some passive philosophy you just think about. It is an active, demanding practice. It's a discipline of constantly aligning with reality. It takes real rigor, a ton of humility, and just a relentless commitment to seeing things exactly as they are, not how we might wish they were.
And that brings us to the final, really powerful shift this whole thing proposes. It's about changing the fundamental question we ask ourselves. We move away from, what should I believe, which is kind of passive, and we move towards something way more powerful and functional. Okay, what is the situation, really, and what's the most effective way for me to engage with it? Answering that question, and answering it with speed and with accuracy, well, that's the ultimate advantage.